In 1974, a sealed ceramic vessel was reportedly pulled from beneath the ruins of Nippur during a routine excavation. Inside were 7 clay tablets. The final tablet carried a Sumerian determinative no Assyriologist had ever documented, one translated as "created thing that no longer exists." Beneath it were 12 entries, each cataloging a distinct species engineered before humanity in 4 bureaucratic columns: physical traits, assigned purpose, lifespan, and recorded reason for termination. That find never appeared in the official season report. And the 12 species it describes were not myth, they were inventory. A sealed ceramic vessel, unearthed from the ancient mud of Nippur in 1974, stands at the heart of a controversy that has unsettled both archaeologists and historians for decades. The vessel itself, a thick-walled jar, its mouth sealed with a plug of hardened clay, was reportedly found embedded at the base of a collapsed wall, well below the surface layers mapped by the official excavation team. According to accounts that circulated among field workers, the jar was intact when lifted from the trench, its contents unknown until it reached the makeshift field lab. Inside, the story goes, lay 7 clay tablets, each marked with dense cuneiform. The find, if real, would have represented a rare example of a sealed archival deposit from the late 3rd millennium BCE, a context prized for its potential to preserve original administrative records. Yet this vessel and its contents vanished from the formal record. The field diaries from 1974, accession registers, and photographic logs from the Oriental Institute's Nippur campaign make no mention of a sealed jar, let alone a cache of tablets with such a provocative subject. The official season report, published the following year, catalogs hundreds of routine finds, pottery shards, animal bones, and scattered tablets recording grain deliveries, but omits any reference to a composite artifact of this nature. The story of the vessel's discovery comes not from institutional archives, but from a handful of anonymous testimonies and later retellings. These accounts describe a joint Danish-American team, though the published staff lists for the Nippur seasons in the 1970s name only American and Iraqi archaeologists. No Danish collaborator appears in the official personnel files, nor do shipment manifests or customs documents from the period list a sealed ceramic vessel among the exported artifacts. What makes the vessel's alleged contents so striking is the claim that all 7 tablets were inscribed with a rigid, repetitive format, each entry cataloging a species, its physical characteristics, assigned function, and the reason for its elimination. The lead tablet in particular is said to have used a determinative never before documented in Sumerian texts, translated as "created thing that no longer exists." The administrative precision of the entries, the specificity of the language, and the absence of any mythological framing set the vessel apart from known cuneiform records. Yet, without a catalog entry, a field photograph, or an accession number, the vessel's existence remains suspended between rumor and record. The absence is itself a kind of presence, a gap in the archive that invites speculation and doubt. Why would such an object, if genuine, be omitted from the official excavation report? Was it overlooked, suppressed, or simply never there to begin with? The vessel's story, whether artifact or anomaly, forces a reckoning with the limits of documentation and the ways in which extraordinary claims can unsettle the routines of archaeology. The sealed jar, real or imagined, now serves as a silent witness to the boundaries between evidence and legend, and as the starting point for a much larger mystery. The arrangement of the alleged tablets stands apart from any cuneiform record known from Nippur or elsewhere in Sumer. Instead of mythic narrative or royal decree, the writing adopts a format more familiar to the world of grain, inventories, and livestock accounts. Each entry is organized in 4 columns with lines devoted to physical traits, assigned function, lifespan, and a final column detailing the reason for termination. This grid-like structure echoes the administrative habits of the Ur-3 period, when scribes recorded everything from sheep tallies to labor assignments in a rigid, almost clinical manner. Yet, what sets these tablets apart is the vocabulary. The lead tablet reportedly introduces a determinative and identifying sign, translated as created thing that no longer exists. Unlike standard determinatives for gods, people, or places, this symbol has no precedent in the Sumerian corpus. Its presence signals a new category, one that neither fits the divine nor the mundane. Alongside it appears the classifier Nam Bulug, rendered as engineered living kind. This too has never surfaced in published sign lists or administrative texts. In the words of one unnamed Assyriologist who reviewed a transcription, the script reads as if it were borrowing the grammar of bureaucracy to describe extinction. Each row on the tablet follows the same bureaucratic rhythm. The first column offers a physical description, sometimes anatomical, sometimes behavioral. The second column assigns a purpose, such as herder, guardian, laborer, or in certain cases, observer. The third column lists a duration, sometimes in years, sometimes in a unit called shar, which in other contexts marks royal reigns or cosmic cycles. The final column, the most unusual, records the reason for elimination. Here the language shifts from the familiar closure of a contract to something more final, terms like by flood, by fire between heaven and earth, or in certain cases, left blank or scratched out. The result reads like a bureaucratic decree. This approach to cataloging living beings by trait, by utility, by lifespan, and by cause of removal mirrors the Sumerian impulse to organize the world through lists. But the content of these lists departs from the ordinary. Instead of sheep or grain, the entries describe beings with features not found in any known animal, and the reasons for their removal invoke forces usually reserved for divine myth. The determinative for created thing that no longer exists hovers over each entry, marking these as categories outside the living order. No authenticated Sumerian administrative tablet has used such a determinative or classifier. The format, though rooted in real bureaucratic practice, takes a turn into the speculative, blending the language of record-keeping with the logic of erasure. The result is a document that, if genuine, would force a rethinking of how the Sumerians conceived of creation, extinction, and the authority to record both. What survives in the descriptions is not just a list, but a framework, one that allows the catalog of species to unfold as a sequence of deliberate bureaucratic decisions, each one finalized with a reason for removal and a mark that no longer exists in the living world. The first 4 entries on the alleged lead tablet unfold with a kind of administrative precision, each species described through a set of physical features, a designated function, a lifespan, and a reason for removal. The language is stripped of myth, resembling a livestock ledger more than a creation myth. Species 1 is presented as a robust 4-limbed animal assigned to water diversion and canal maintenance. Its recorded lifespan, 600 years, ends with a single phrase, by flood. The term used, amaru, matches the Sumerian word for deluge, a tool of erasure found in older flood epics. Here, though, it appears in the dry shorthand of a bureaucratic cull, not a divine act. Species 2 and 3 follow a similar pattern. One is tasked with soil aeration, the other with marsh drainage. Both are described as large, semi-aquatic, and engineered for repetitive labor. The tablets allot each a fixed duration, measured in shar, an ancient unit roughly equal to 3,600 years. The second species is terminated after 3 shar, or about 10,800 years, with the notation efficiency cull. The third, after a shorter span, is marked for removal due to resource imbalance. The language here is stark, reducing the fate of entire life forms to lines in an administrative table. It is with species 4 that the record breaks from routine. The description notes a burrowing, heat-resistant anatomy adapted for subterranean life. Its assigned function is stabilization of lower strata, a phrase that hints at geological engineering rather than animal husbandry. The original termination order, dated at 9 shar, 32,400 years, is followed by an annotation, survived below ground after cull. This is the only entry where survival is recorded after official elimination, and it stands out against the finality of the other entries. The notation is brief but loaded, a being designed for the Earth's depths, persisting far beyond its scheduled end, unaccounted for by the administrative system that created it. The pattern established by these first 4 species is one of control and calculated removal. Each entry is a record of design, deployment, and disposal, with reasons that range from environmental misfit to planned obsolescence. But the annotation for species 4 disrupts that logic, introducing the possibility that not all engineered life could be cleanly erased, even by the hand that wrote its fate. This early anomaly sets the stage for the more troubling cases that follow, where purpose and control begin to slip from the hands of the record keepers. Species 5 is marked by a method of eradication that stands apart from the rest. The entry describes a creature with elongated limbs and a high metabolic rate, designed for rapid atmospheric filtration. Its role is listed as air purification, with a lifespan of just over 2 shar. The reason for its destruction is unlike the earlier flood or cull entries. The Sumerian phrase used, "fire placed between heaven and earth," blends the signs for fire, placement, and the cosmic boundary. This construction appears in ritual contexts but is unprecedented in administrative records. No further explanation is offered, but the implication is unmistakable. A force both celestial and absolute, erasing every trace and possibility of return. Species 6 is a large aquatic grazer assigned to keep wetland plants in check. Its lifespan is short, and its removal is recorded with the phrase, "function superseded." The language is impersonal, almost dismissive, hinting at a quiet shift in ecological management or the arrival of a more efficient replacement. There is no drama here, only the logic of planned obsolescence reinforcing the administrative detachment that pervades the tablet. Species 7 draws the eye for both its anatomical details and the language surrounding its termination. It is described as bipedal, with complex joints and a notably large cranial cavity. Its purpose is observation and reporting, pointing to advanced cognitive abilities. The termination entry breaks from the standard formulas using a compound phrase not found elsewhere, self-directed knowing without permission. The usual administrative tone gives way to alarm. No lifespan is noted, and a secondary mark follows the entry, a rare sign in these lists, indicating a breach that surpassed the control of the record keepers. This entry stands as a warning, a recognition that something in its design had crossed a line. Species 8 resumes the pattern of ecological management. It is a nocturnal burrower tasked with controlling pests in the upper soil. Its removal is tied to a clear metric: prey decline threshold reached. The language is clinical, tracking ecosystem collapse and the administrative response. The entry closes with a standard notation, restoring the rhythm of control after the disruption of species 7. The last 4 entries on the tablet shift from the language of disaster and ecological cull to methods that are more calculated, even ritualized. Species 9 is recorded with a 50-year lifespan, but the column for elimination reads simply, "Sterilization protocol enacted." The term matches administrative shorthand for livestock management, but in this context it applies to a being described as upright, high-sighted, with paired vocal organs. There is no mention of violence or environmental change, only the quiet finality of a population rendered unable to continue. Species 10 is allotted a strikingly long existence, 7,000 years. The entry describes a being with segmented limbs and reflective skin assigned to ceremonial duties. Its removal is not abrupt. Instead, the tablet specifies a ritual dismantling, a phrase that appears in temple inventories for the decommissioning of cult statues, but never before for a living kind. The process is listed as witnessed by a council of 6, with each name inscribed in a separate line, as if to emphasize the gravity of the act. The tablet notes that the remains were divided and sealed, and the function marked as no longer required. Species 11 stands out for its brevity. The description is limited to a single line, "Successor assigned." The lifespan is given as 180 years, but the only detail in the elimination column reads "lineage superseded." No anatomical notes, no witness list, and no termination method. The implication is of a replacement, an administrative handover, not an erasure. This entry compresses the logic of succession into a few words, more like a change of office than an extinction. Species 12 is the most enigmatic. The entry is almost blank. A single phrase, Archive Retirement Code 1000. There is no description of form, no assigned function, no lifespan. The elimination column is left unfinished, the final sign trailing off into a scraped patch of clay. Unlike the previous entries, there is no witness, no notation of process, only the barest indication that something was retired, not destroyed. The column that should record the reason for removal is absent, as if the act itself was either forgotten or deliberately omitted. This sparse record stands as the tablet's last word, a ledger closed not with a verdict, but with silence. The catalog ends here, tapering into blankness, leaving the fate of the final entry suspended between record and erasure. Microscopic examination of the alleged 7th tablet reveals a surface that tells its own story. Fine parallel striations run across the reverse, consistent with scraping by a metal or bone implement before the clay had fully hardened. In conservation labs, such tool marks are often evidence of intentional erasure, a practice used in antiquity to remove unwanted text or repurpose a tablet for new writing. Yet, in this case, the marks cut through a partially inscribed column, leaving the final entry unfinished and its meaning obscured. No conservation report from the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures references this tablet, and no accession number links it to the Nippur collection. Security records from the late 1970s document the movement of select artifacts to restricted access vaults, but the logs list only standard items, animal bone inventories, fragmentary receipts, and temple seals. There is no mention of a sealed vessel or a multi-tablet deposit matching the vessel's description. The 1979 vault inventory, now partially digitized, contains no entry for a group of 7 tablets, nor any reference to a new determinative or classified administrative format. The absence of a catalog entry, combined with the physical evidence of erasure, raises questions about both the fate of the object and the intentions behind its handling. Without a field photograph, an accession tag, or a conservation file, the tablet's official existence dissolves into rumor. What remains are the traces of removal, scraped clay, unrecorded transfer, and a blank space in the institutional archive, each a tangible marker of how artifacts can vanish from both public record and scholarly reach. A single voice rises from the silence that surrounds the alleged tablets, a private note, unsigned, attributed to a zoologist at the University of Chicago in 1976. The memo, never officially filed, describes a sense of unease. According to the account, the anatomical details on the tablets are uncannily precise, with references to bilateral symmetry, warm-bloodedness, and even reproductive traits that align with modern biological categories. The writer admits to being unsettled, remarking that some descriptions could only be written by someone who had dissected such a creature. There is no record of a formal report, only this fragment of professional doubt, passed quietly among a handful of colleagues and never cited in any published analysis. The final line on the last tablet is even more cryptic. Where most cuneiform records close with a scribe's signature or a statement of authority, this one ends with the phrase, Lu Kingi A and Na. The literal translation, the messenger sent down from the sky, offers no name, no office, only a title that appears nowhere else in the Sumerian corpus. No authenticated administrative tablet or royal inscription uses this combination. Its meaning remains as opaque as the fate of the tablets themselves. What survives is not certainty, but a residue of doubt, a private expert's discomfort with the anatomical realism, and a colophon that refuses to resolve into any known category. The story closes not with revelation, but with a signature that leads only into silence. Today, the tablets remain locked from public scrutiny, their existence denied in official records. As ancient texts continue to blur the boundaries between myth, administration, and biology, we confront a deeper question. Who decides which histories and which species are preserved or erased? In a world still driven by classification and control, the silence surrounding these tablets echoes louder than any inscription. Share your thoughts on what should come next.